what I love about your story is that it's so very personal. It started from you in about 2014, 2015. You checked your bank account and you had $2.26 in your account. And from there, you made it your mission, really, to become financially independent, to retire early. That was one of your goals at the time. And from there, in 5 years' time, you had 1.25 million in the bank account. So tell us about your story, what got started. Obviously, your motivations, I think, are clear, but how they developed over time and how it's become this industry of Grant Sabatier since, you know?
Yeah, so my story starts, back when I was born in southern Indiana in kind of a rural area. And my parents grew up in a one stoplight town, didn't grow up with, much or very much money. And so when I was 6 months old, they made the decision to move to the suburbs of Washington, D.C., which is, the capital of the United States, just to give me a different opportunity than they had. And so growing up, this is a story that they told often to me. I'm an only child. My parents really struggled to make ends meet when they moved to DC. And so, money was really tight. It was something that they were stressed about, they fought about. Money was very, very present in my life growing up. And so, growing up, my parents embedded a lot of their dreams and goals into me. And as I grew up, I worked hard. I did well in school. I ended up graduating second in my class. I went to, a top university and studied philosophy, and I really felt like I had everything going for me, and that I made really had made my parents proud. But when I graduated college in 2008, I ended up bouncing around four different jobs. I got laid off twice. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and so because I didn't know what I wanted to do, I just kind of floated around trying to make ends meet and just couldn't find the right fit. And so when I was 24, I actually had to move back home with my parents because I was completely broke. And so here my parents had given me everything and all these opportunities and invested everything in me. And I was, their adult son that had to move back because I was broke. And so in the summer, this is 2010. Went to a July 4th picnic. It's the Independence Day in the U.S., and I was the only child there, adult child of my parents' friends. And everyone, they were in their late 50s, early 60s. Everyone, all they could talk about was retirement. They were talking about when are they going to retire. One person had retired. They talked about what they were doing. Every conversation was about money amongst these boomers and my parents. And I was like, gosh, these people have worked their entire lives. And it was the first time that I looked at my parents and realized that they'd gotten a little older and that some of the dreams that they had talked about, not only had they not accomplished them, but they didn't even have them anymore. And so, I didn't have anything else to do. And I'm, a philosophy major. So I was really reflecting on this and my life and felt really stuck. And I remember, having dinner with my parents coming down one night, and I could just see the shame and the fear in their faces. They were like, gosh, what did we do wrong? What's wrong with Grant? And it was just that look from them that really kind of welled up, this sort of come to Jesus moment, in my life. And at the point I had $2.26 in my bank account. So I couldn't even go out and get a Chipotle burrito. I had to eat, the
I
turkey
don't even think
sandwiches
you
that
could have
I
got the extra guac.
Nothing. I couldn't get anything. So I had to eat I was eating turkey sandwiches, out of my parents' refrigerator, as a 24-year-old, which, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it was just, I felt absolutely terrible. And so it was around this time that I started just thinking about money. I was like, gosh, my parents are still stressed about money. They're not retired. Their friends are stressed about money. Everyone seems stressed. I don't have any money. What is money? I'd actually never really thought much about money until that point. And so, I just thought that money was something that I would eventually figure out. And so I put my philosophy hat on and I was like, what is money really? And I started going down the rabbit hole and I Googled best money books. And the first result was a book, Your Money or Your Life by Vicky Robin and Joe Dominguez. And so I ordered it and I ended up getting it. I remember the day, it was August 10th, 2010. And I remember I got the book and I sat down and I read it in two sittings and I finished it, during the weekend. And I was so blown away by this book where the central premise is whenever you're working, you're trading your life energy for money, and you're never going to get back that time. And so you really need to think hard about how you make money, how you save it. And every time that you're investing, you're actually acquiring, future freedom that you can take advantage of. This just absolutely blew my mind. And my quick takeaway was, okay, I don't want to have to work for the rest of my life. How can I make as much money as quickly as possible? Right. So then that became my next Google search. And I immediately recognized that a vast majority of what I was finding was either, completely wrong or scams or some, multi-level marketing scheme. And I was like, geez, this money world is an absolute pit. This is terrible. Where can I get good advice? Where can I learn how to do this? And that really just set me off on a deep, deep learning journey. I ended up doing another Google search and saw a Google mobile ad and saw, that digital marketing careers were projected to grow 300% over the next decade. And so I ended up getting into Google ad campaigns and learning how to run them and getting certified by free from Google. And I found a career that, I knew nothing about, but that was growing. There was demand, and it was something I felt like I could potentially be good at. And I was really off to the races. So the first job I applied to after getting certified by Google for free, it took me a little over a month, was in Chicago at a digital marketing agency. I went there, basically got a PhD in digital marketing for a year, learned everything I could about paid search and paid social and SEO and building websites. And I quickly realized, gosh, I don't want to work for $52,000 a year, even saving 50% of my income, which I was able to do at that level because I was driving an $800 car and living in a $700 a month apartment. There's a limit to how much I could save. So I started side hustling and building websites for smaller companies than my agency would work with, and then ended up leaving the agency after a year after I'd made over $250,000 on the side building websites for lawyers and realtors in Chicago. And so I kind of found that niche, ended up scaling an agency. I started a second agency focused on higher education. The entire time I was saving 82% of my income. And this is all I was doing. It took me, 5 years, 3 months, and 2 days from the day that I left my parents' house to go from the $2.26 to $1.25 million saved in my bank account. And it was by far the hardest thing that I've ever done. It was crazy, I made a ton of mistakes, but like anything in life, when you spend a lot of time doing something, and I can very, very confidently say that I've far surpassed the 10,000 hour expert threshold when it comes to studying and learning about money. You actually learn a lot and you learn a ton. And so I learned a bunch, and all my friends were still broke and in debt, and my parents were still working. And I went on this sort of heroic hero's journey for 5 years where I made a lot of trade-offs, and I came out the other end with way more money than I thought I would ever have, and a lot of lessons. And I kind of had my money that then I wanted to share what I had learned with others, not even thinking that you could make money writing about money. I just wanted to share what I had learned in the hopes that it could help others. And so I started talking to my friends about what I had done. And obviously, I'd encountered other personal finance blogs, and I realized that, I had an incredible story to tell. And I was very passionate about helping others because I had been so stressed and I didn't want others to feel stressed. And I also think really the chips are stacked against the little guy, and it can be very confusing and a very difficult world to navigate. Less kind of the how to save money and more the how to make money. And so that's really what I made my focus is, hey, we live in a time in history when it's never been easier to make, save, and invest money. Here's how to take advantage of those opportunities in a way that ultimately gives you more time and space and freedom in your life so that you can expand into the full expression of what it means to be a human being. So I had a pretty big mission and started just writing and learning how to write. And I was a terrible, terrible, terrible writer, at first, and, just practiced at it and got a little bit better and built an audience and got a following and really became a reluctant influencer. Before influencers were really kind of a thing. So I came up when that term, before that term was even coined, and then was coined kind of in the middle of my journey. But I really stumbled into that, and learned a lot about what it means to have a platform and a voice, and connecting with a broad global audience. And yeah, ended up getting a book deal and with Penguin Random House and writing Financial Freedom, which is now in 19 languages. Just sold the Estonian translation last week, and yeah, it's just been such a joy and such a dream to be able to share what I learned and continue to refine what I learned, because I've learned an immense amount from readers, of my content. That's been the coolest thing because I share what I've done, and then people reach out with other recommendation or tweaks, and I ended up learning a ton about tax efficiency and investing, and building a real estate business and building a holding company. I've learned so much just from my readers, filling the gaps in my own knowledge, and it's become a much larger community and mission, and just blown my mind. Has become something far beyond anything I could ever have imagined, and I feel really grateful to be able to do this work and support this mission, and send out hopefully as many good vibes to people as I can.